Hey everybody, welcome back to our Tai Chi Live home version. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Today, we're going to go over the principle of moving from the Dan Tian. Remember, on Tuesdays, we're going to do our principle practice and focus on learning some movements and applying a certain principle to it. And then on Friday, we take that same principle practice and we put these movements into a flow, into a form. But today we're going to work on those movements and talk about moving from the Dan Tian. So what is the Dan Tian? Well, it's 2 inches in from the belly button. It's 2 inches down. It's the center of your energy in Tai Chi. It's also the center of your balance. So it's very important to learn how to move from the Dan Tian. And it's very much related to the principles that we've already talked about. We've talked about being suspended from the ceiling and letting your body fall naturally into alignment. And that allows the columns that we have in our body to remain intact. Remember, there's one column straight down the center of your body, one through each shoulder, through each hip. We talked about substantial and insubstantial, the idea of where your weight is and understanding which side is empty and which side is full. And then last week we talked about rotation and we talked about how we rotate on that central column. Moving from the Dan Tian relates to all of these principles. So as we go through the movements today, I'll be calling back those different principles, but we'll really be focusing on moving from the Dan Tian. So I'm going to step back and I want you to think about if we move from our Dan Tian, that's our core, right? And that's kind of a buzzword in fitness. But in Tai Chi, it's not a buzzword. It's a very important concept. If we do our pushing Chi, so bring one foot forward, legs are not too narrow. Bring your hands to that level of that Dan Tian. Remember, 2 inches in from the belly button, 2 inches down. If we bring our weight back and then forward, just let your hands kind of float naturally up and out. This is pushing Chi. And it's a great little warm. And if we're moving from our Dan Tian, we're keeping those columns intact, right? Think about being suspended, keeping those shoulders above your hips. And if we think about moving from here, just let your hands kind of drop and let your body just feel that weight shifting forward and back. Remember the concept of substantial and insubstantial. As we move back, this weight becomes the more substantial leg. Then as we move forward, this leg becomes the more substantial leg. Bring your hands back into that motion. And if we forget about moving from the Dan Tian, what happens? We start to think about our hands too much. And I'm going to move a little bit more to the side. And if we think about our hands, we start pushing forward like this because we're pushing, right? And we think that we need to push, but that's not moving from the Dan Tian. If we move from here, those hands just kind of float up and out and we keep our posture in a good position. Remember what I said about the Dan Tian being the center of your balance. If we do this, we're in a very unbalanced position, correct? If we move from the Dan Tian, now all of a sudden we can keep our bodies very balanced. We know exactly where that weight is. Bring that foot back, bring the other foot forward, and let's do pushing Chi on the other side. And just because this is warming up, I want you to think about your breathing too. You breathe in as you come towards your body, and you breathe out as you push away. One more. Good. Now we're going to continue with a little bit of warm up and do Chi walking. Idea of substantial and insubstantial. Remember, as you Chi walk, you want to feel the water flowing from one side into the next. So all that water flows from this leg into this leg, and you don't lift this back leg until it's completely empty. And then you rock a little bit forward, test, rock back. And now that you know it's safe, bring all that water into this front leg. Don't lift this back leg until it's completely empty. So why is this moving from the Dan Tian? It really relates to that whole idea of the weight shifting forward and back. And what helps keep us more balanced is to understand to bring that Dan Tian over the base of support, over that substantial leg. So let me step back. And again, wherever you are, make sure that your area is nice and safe for you to be moving, that you don't have anything that you're going to trip on, that there's nothing for you to be worried about, that you have an open space to be moving in. So as we step forward in our Chi walking, we bring that Dan Tian over that substantial leg. That helps keep us balanced, because now I can step forward with the other leg. I'm letting that water flow into this leg, and I'm moving that Dan Tian over my base of support. And then I can step forward. Practicing this Chi walking is going to help you with your balance tremendously. Understanding that you're moving from here and incorporating that substantial and that idea of substantial and insubstantial. One more step. So now let's think about our movement, wave hands like clouds. We talked a lot about it last week in the idea of rotating on that central column. Remember, we don't rotate like this. We're not a top that's kind of running out of gas. We rotate on that central column. As we rotate, we have this ball in front, and then just switch your hands and rotate back. Switch your hands and rotate back. So this is your wave hands like clouds without stepping, right? And what does this have to do with moving from the Dan Tian? Well, if you think about this is the focus. This is a little flashlight. And you're moving that flashlight from side to side. You're not just moving from your shoulders. This is how moving from the Dan Tian relates to that rotation, which relates to columns. And it also relates to being suspended. Allow yourself to be lifted, because we don't want to do, we'd look a lot like a monkey if we're going to do wave hands like clouds like that, right? So I want you to think about moving this first, moving from the Dan Tian, and that just allows your arms to relax, because they're not leading the movement. The Dan Tian is leading the movement. One more. So in a movement very similar to wave hands like clouds, where we do part the wild horse's mane, let's think about that in terms of rotation, in terms of columns, in terms of substantial and insubstantial, and most importantly, moving from the Dan Tian. You can start to see how moving from the Dan Tian is really gluing all of these other principles together. So if we start with our weight on this side, bringing this hand up and this hand underneath, as if you're holding a ball, step out with this leg, let the bottom hand come up and the top hand comes down. That's our part the wild horse's mane. Let's practice that again. Holding the ball, step out, let that bottom hand come up and the top hand comes down. One more. Step out, part the wild horse's mane. Now if you watch, if I'm here with my weight on this side, that's my substantial side. As I step out, this starts to become my substantial side. This water flows forward. As I step out and I rotate from the Dan Tian and I bring my Dan Tian over that base of support. Again, if I'm thinking about my balance and I'm doing my wave hands like clouds, I don't want to be reaching like this. I don't want to reach out. I don't want my body to break those columns. I want to keep my Dan Tian over my base of support and allow my body to rotate on that central column, keeping myself balanced. So let's practice that again. Holding the ball on this side, step out, part the wild horse's mane. Now just step back with this foot, hold the ball on this side, which means this hand is high, the other hand is low. Step out, part the wild horse's mane. Try to think about moving, rotating from that Dan Tian. Step back, part the wild horse's mane. Stepping back, part the wild horse's mane. Let's do that one more time on each side. Part the wild horse's mane. One more. Part the wild horse's mane. Good. Now we're going to think about moving from the Dan Tian in just a little bit different way. I want you to bring your weight over to this side. And remember, because we don't have mirrors and I have to be facing the camera, it doesn't matter which side is which. You just follow along with me and you'll be just fine. So bring your weight over to this side. Let this side become empty and just lift that leg. If you can't lift, that's fine. Just let that toe kind of touch the ground. That's okay. Now bring the weight over to the other side. If you can't lift, let that toe touch, but if you can, try to lift. And if you think about your substantial and insubstantial and your columns, that weight, this side becomes full, this side becomes empty. The column is straight, therefore this leg becomes very light. You can lift it easily because it's so light, it's empty. So what does this have to do with moving from the Dan Tian? I'm not moving forward, I'm not moving backwards. This is an interesting concept here of where if you bring your weight over, now lift from here. This is what actually lifts that knee. Isn't that an interesting concept where you think about lifting from here and that knee just kind of floats up? Now we're going to add a kick. Lift and kick. Good. And remember, if you can't lift that foot off the ground, that's okay. You can come to here and then just tap that toe out just a little bit further. Come to the other side, lift and kick. One more. Now this movement in the form, kick, smash, and box the ears, is a fun one. I like it. And it looks like this. We kick, we smash, and then we get to box the ears. If we're thinking about moving from the Dan Tian, we're going to keep our balance. If we don't move from the Dan Tian, this one is really easy to lose your balance. Watch from the side. If I lift, lifting from my Dan Tian, kick, smash, I have to lower my center of gravity. I have to lower from the Dan Tian and then move forward. So I'm coming over that substantial side to box the ears. If I do it that way, notice my columns are intact. But what happens a lot of times when we do that kick, smash, and box the ears is we do this very nicely and then we fall forward, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid falling. We want to be able to keep ourselves balanced. You want to avoid just crash landing. So what you have to do is think about moving from the Dan Tian. As we lift from the Dan Tian, kick, smash. Now lower that center of gravity, then move forward from the Dan Tian and box the ears. Let's try that again on this side. Kick, smash, and box the ears. One more on this side. Lift, kick, smash, lowering that center of gravity and box the ears. Let's try it on the other side. Lift, kick, smash, lower that center of gravity, moving forward just a little bit. You don't have to go forward to box his ears. His ears are right here. There, you've already got him. So now think about being substantial. This one's insubstantial. Lift, kick, smash, lowering that center of gravity, and box the ears. There's another movement in the form where you're using that idea of lifting from the Dan Tian and moving forward to allow your body to come into the right alignment. And that move is snake creeps, pheasant stands. Let's do the pheasant stands part first. Bring your weight over to this side. Let this side become empty. Lift, and just bring your elbow towards that knee. Come to the other side. Pheasant stands. Remember, we're lifting from here, allowing that knee just to float up. Good, one more on each side. Now with our snake creeps part of the pheasant stands, we're forming a bird's beak, which is just the 3 fingers here against the thumb. Let the hand just naturally drop. You're not trying to force it down, just kind of let it be gentle. Then stepping out with this opposite leg. Take the other hand, you're going to trace that leg, then turn your body, bring your Dan Tian over this front leg. You're shifting your weight from the back to the front, which allows this back leg to become empty, which then you can lift into your pheasant stands. So let's try that again. Form your bird's beak, step out with the opposite leg. Now bring your weight back towards that hand that's the bird's beak. Take the opposite hand, trace, shift that weight to that front leg, and then bring the back leg up into pheasant stands. If you can't bring that leg up, that's fine. As you shift, just bring the foot to here. That's totally fine. Let's try that again. Snake creeps, pheasant stands. Step out. It's really tempting to have your weight forward. Bring that weight back. Trace that hand along that leg, turning your torso, bring your weight forward, and pheasant stands. Of course, we have to do it on both sides. So now form a bird's beak with the other hand. Step out with this leg now. Bring the weight back. Trace that front leg, turning your torso. Now bring that Dan Tian over the base of support and pheasant stance. One more. Snake creeps, pheasant stance. Good, so now we have a couple more movements that I want to go over in terms of moving from the Dan Tian. I hope that you're starting to understand how the Dan Tian is critical to every single movement, not just in terms of balance, but in terms of keeping your columns intact, understanding where your weight is. It integrates all of that together. So let's do our Repulse the Monkey. Now remember Repulse the Monkey, and I'm gonna go a little bit diagonal here, is you're stepping backwards and stepping backwards. So it's very important to understand your weight shift, but it's also important to understand how you're leading the movement with the Dan Tian. So we're going to do that by not doing the hands. I want you to bring this foot forward and now shift your weight back. So your weight's on this back leg. Thinking about here, in fact, put your hands right here. Step back and now move from the Dan Tian. Bring that weight back. Let this leg become empty. Step back and move from the Dan Tian. One more. Weights back. Step back. Turning. Now, of course, your feet have to pivot. It's not just moving from here. You know, we're not Gumby. We can't just allow our bodies to twist up. Yes, your feet have to pivot, and that's actually very important. But if you focus on that movement coming from here, and remember we talked about rotation last week, and we talked about how it's power. The power comes from here. And that's in any sport. If you think about baseball, if you think about golf, if you think about tennis, that power comes from here. Being able to rotate and move and incorporate the entire body. It's almost like a spiral or a cork, a tornado. That power comes from that rotation. So we're going to do our Repulse the Monkey now. Bringing this foot forward. Whatever foot is forward, that hand is forward. The back hand is back. You don't have to be at 180 degrees. Let it be a natural feeling. Bring that weight back. Step back, and as you bring that back hand across and towards the front, you're twisting from here and just opening yourself up. Bring that weight back, step back, bring that back hand forward, but twist from here. One more, bring the weight back, step back, that back hand comes up and over and twisting from here. Good, let's do that one more time with your Repulse the Monkey. Open yourself up here. Understand where your weight is. That back hand comes up and over, and then you just open yourself up. Shift the weight back, step, and just open yourself up. One more, shift the weight back, bring that back hand up and over, and good. So there's one more movement where you really learn how to lead from the Dan Tian, because you're not actually moving anywhere. And that's our ward off, grasp the bird's tail, that whole sequence. You're staying in one position, truly. But the Dan Tian is leading. It's almost, remember what I said about a spiral. It's almost like a whip for the rest of your body. And you'll understand what I mean. Let's do the ward off. Bring your weight over to this side, holding the ball. Remember, if your weight's on this side, that hand is high. Step out. Bring that bottom hand up. Now you're turning your whole body. Remember, we talked about that last week in rotation. Turn your whole body. Let those elbows just drop. then move back. Let the hands kind of fall to that back hip. Then rotate back. And now here's our pushing chi that we worked on at the very beginning. So that's the ward off sequence. Let's do it again. Holding the ball, step out, bring that bottom hand up, turn your whole body, and then just let those elbows drop. Let the hands drop towards that back hip, turning and coming into your pushing chi. Moving from the Dan Tian. If we think about stepping out, this begins the movement. This rotation here starts that movement, and it's just like a whip. It just brings my hands into that grasp, ward off and grasp the bird's tail position. So I'm not leading from my hands. I'm not reaching like this, and I'm not reaching like this. I'm allowing this Dan Tian movement to let my arms relax and my hands just kind of follow the motion. Now I start the movement from here and I let my hands just kind of drop. Then I start from here and my hands follow. So my hands are following my Dan Tian. Even in my pushing chi motion, I'm pulling my hands back in from my Dan Tian and I'm pushing them back out. Let's do that again. Pull it back in and push it back out. So let's try ward off on the other side. Bringing your weight over here, holding the ball here. Step out. Think about moving from the Dan Tian, rotate the entire body. Let the hands just follow. Then you start the movement from your hips, just let your hands follow. Start the movement from your hips, let your hands follow, and pushing chi. There's a way that we used to practice in our Taekwondo classes where we would have belts, and sometimes we would have to put our thumbs in our belts, and we would have to do our form without using our hands. So I want to try that one time with our ward off sequence. You don't have to put your thumbs in your pants. You can put your hands right here on your Dan Tian. That's just fine. Think about the weight should be on this side. Remember, we're not going to use our hands, but we're holding the ball. Then we're going to step out. We rotate from the Dan Tian, grasp the bird's tail. Then we rotate and our hands fall as we roll back. Then we move from the Dan Tian as we ward off and press. Then we do our pushing chi. Good, then just move to bring your weight over to one side, bring it back to the other. We're going to do that on the other side. Step out, let that Dan Tian lead the motion. Remember, now we're grasping the bird's tail. Roll back, let your hands drop towards that back hip, leading from the Dan Tian. Rotate and press, then pulling those hands back into pushing chi and pushing forward. Let's do ward off on both sides of the body one more time. This time we get to use our hands though. Holding the ball. Step out. Think about moving from the Dan Tian. Let your hands relax. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Now just bring your weight to the other side. Then bring it back, holding the ball on this side now. Step out, ward off. Grasp the bird's tail. Roll back. Rotate and press. Pushing chi. Very nice job today. It's a critical principle. Moving from the Dan Tian. You can see how it helps you rotate properly, helps you keep your columns intact because you're moving from here, not from here. It helps you understand where that weight is and bringing that Dan Tian over the base of support. How much more that helps keep you balanced if you can understand to lift from the Dan Tian and move. These are just extremities. This is your core. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can practice it during the week, and on Friday we'll get back together and we'll put these movements into a flow of movements, into a form. And that way you can practice moving in a flow and understanding moving from the Dan Tian. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you on Friday.